Hi, I'm Dr. Amy Robbins, and welcome to Life, Death, and the Space Between. Laurel Stuart is a doctor of acupuncture, and from an early age, she understood what it meant to maintain good health. She is the founder of Vibrational Yin, a style of yin yoga that incorporates the stimulation of acupuncture points, primarily using sound, which to me is fascinating because I've been talking more about sound on this podcast. And in today's episode, we talk about sound and how that integrates into your energy centers, also known as your chakras. So Laurel and I discuss chakras, what each chakra is connected to, how energy can get stuck, and how the energetic system can also be seen through a psychological lens. So with that, here's today's episode of Life, Death, and the Space Between. Welcome, Laurel, to Life, Death, and the Space Between.
Hi, Dr. Amy. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. So I'm excited today because you really have a way of making kind of traditional Chinese medicine, chakras, meridians, acupoints, very tangible for people and ways that they can apply these kind of practices if they can't get to an acupuncturist into their everyday life. So can we start with some of the basics, like what are chakras, what are meridians, what are acupoints, and how do they fit together in us understanding the energetic body?
Okay, definitely. So the energetic body is fluid, and there are actually quite a few different ways of looking at our energy. So you'll find different perspectives depending on different parts of which part of the world we are from. So chakras is from South Asia, the Indian continent, and chakras are energy centers where we actually, when we think about it, we actually do have feelings. We actually do feel stuff. Like when we have a heartbreak, don't most of us experience a sensation in the center of our chest? Mm-hmm. Or when we're really nervous, sometimes we feel what we call butterflies in the tummy. So these areas relate to our chakras. Now from East Asia, we have the meridians, which are energy pathways that our energy flows through. And in traditional Chinese medicine, when our energy doesn't flow properly, that's how we become unbalanced and experience ill health.
Chakras are the energy centers, and meridians are kind of the lines through which the energy flows, like almost like the vein in the heart kind of thing?
Yes.
Okay.
Similar to that, you can definitely look at it that way.
Okay. And then acupoints are what? How do those fit into all of this?
So acupuncture points, or acupoints for short, are spots along the surface of the body that we can use to affect the flow of energy in our meridians. And the meridians are connected, most of them are connected to our internal organs. So we can use those acupuncture points to influence the health of our internal organs. Think of the meridians as a highway, or lots of people like to think of them as rivers. The acupuncture points would be stops along the highway where we'd fuel up for gas, take a bathroom break, get something to eat, so that the energy or whatever we're doing continues to flow smoothly. From a Western medicine point of view, the acupuncture points are areas where when we insert in needles, we change the chemicals of the body. We influence the body for the better. We encourage healing.
Got it. Okay. So can you walk us through each chakra and what each one relates to, maybe what it holds, and also how they can get stuck, or how would we know if there's stuck energy there, and how do we move it through?
That's an interesting question. A big question.
A big question.
I'll try to answer it as best I can. That will be the rest
of the podcast, I think, because that should cover everything.
Okay. So the chakras, or chakras, which is the Sanskrit pronunciation, were
I never
originally
know. Is it chakras or chakras?
chakras are, so that you can kind of think of it as actually two words because they're actually quite a bit different. But chakras is the Western term that comes from the Sanskrit term chakras. Chakras were originally used as focal points for meditation. But in the West, we've kind of expanded on the idea of chakras, and we have chakras, and they're associated with color, they're associated with planets, they're associated with specific energies. Some teachers, they're also, you will always find a specific chakra kind of deals with a specific type of energy. We can walk through that. So there are actually quite a few different systems, and each system can have a different number of chakras. But in the West, we are more familiar with the 7 chakra system. And the chakras are energy centers. They're considered, some people consider them wheels of light, wheels of energy that actually sit along the center of the body, along in front of the spine. And if we're looking at the 7 chakra system, which is a system that I discuss in Energetic Anatomy Made Easy, the first chakra is the root chakra, and that has to do with it. Imagine if you can, the chakra also like a flower, and it opens towards the earth. The energy of that chakra opens down and it connects us to the earth. And it has to do with our feelings of balance, our feelings of safety, and how well we fit into our tribe, how comfortable we feel in our tribe. Just above the root chakra, maybe 1 or 2 inches below the navel, we have our sacral chakra. And the sacral chakra opens up. So it's sitting in the center of the body, and it opens towards the front of towards the front and the back of the body. So like the root chakra kind of opens down. This one kind of opens out and expands. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Sacral chakra is associated with reproduction, our ability to flow with life, and our creativity and our sensuality, our ability to experience pleasure. So if you have issues experiencing pleasure, or if you feel like pleasure is just one little thing that I can only have just a little bit of every 10 days, maybe there's a little bit of imbalance in that area.
Got it. So it's not necessarily related to sex. It can be related to any sort of enjoyment of any kind.
Yes.
Okay.
Including sex.
Including sex, right. Okay.
So above the second chakra, we have our third chakra, Manipura. And this chakra is associated with the fire of our life. And it is very closely connected to the health of our digestive system.
It's the solar plexus. Is that what we call it in like the West? The solar plexus?
Solar plexus chakra.
Okay.
And it opens like the sacral chakra. So to the front
So when
and
you
back.
say it opens, what do you mean? Like the energy flows kind of in those directions versus the root, that the energy flows down. In these other ones, the energy flows kind of forward, backward, up and out.
Yes. But this is a beautiful thing. The energy can kind of flow throughout the entire system. So it primarily, when I tell you this direction, it's kind of like the primary direction. But these energies affecting our entire body. So going back to the root chakra, how it opens, it governs over our legs, our ability to stand in life. But it still can affect our heart. Fear is quite closely connected to our root chakra when it is imbalanced. When we don't feel balanced, or when we don't feel steady in life, we might be experiencing quite a bit of fear. So it's going to affect more than just the legs.
Got it.
So the primary energy kind of opens down, but I just want to give you a visualization of kind of what how the energy moves and what it kind of looks like. But is more to it than that.
Right. Of course. But that's helpful.
Okay. So we've talked about the solar plexus chakra. So this has
digestion, to also... So let's say, I'll let you finish and then I'll ask my questions. Otherwise I'll take us in 12 different directions here. I'm going to write this down though.
12 different directions is totally fine.
Like the meridians in our body, right?
Yeah. Okay. So this center, that solar plexus center, it also has to do with our self-worth and our self-esteem, our ability to achieve our goals. Because if we don't have the energy to achieve our goals on a very basic level, we will start to maybe we need to look at the health of the solar plexus chakra. And again, because our energy is fluid, we may not look at just one chakra. We look at a couple.
Right. That makes sense. And when you're looking at it, are you going in intuitively? Do you feel something? Like what is your experience?
Intuition is always good, but also just looking at the facts or looking at the truths that I can see.
Like symptoms of what people are describing.
Yes.
So you're looking at both the physical symptoms and the emotional symptoms.
Yes.
Okay.
Like what people are telling me they're feeling. Or sometimes from a traditional Chinese point of view, you can hear it just in the sound of their voice. Like someone who speaks very softly, very timid. As opposed to someone who speaks very loudly and very aggressive.
Got it. Okay.
We kind of get different, there's different types of energy associated with each.
Right. And I guess I do the same thing with my clinical work, right? Like that's what I'm assessing is like, how is the person presenting and what is the feeling I get when I'm sitting with them? Like, are they loud and aggressive and in your face? Are they quiet? What is that then? Like what, like information am I then gleaning from that? And then you sort of test those hypotheses.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And for us traditional Chinese medicine practitioners, we our primary methods of diagnosis are looking at the tongue and feeling the pulse. So the tongue will tell us quite a bit about what's happening. For example, if you look at your tongue, you have a red tip. The first thing we'll think, so yours is not too bad. Is there a red tip there? I can't see it there.
Not really.
Not really.
There's something.
Yeah, there's a little something there. But if you had a huge like red tip there, I would say that I would think there's something happening with your heart energy. And one of the first questions I'll ask you is, how's your sleep? I'm not sleeping very well, or I sleep well, but I still feel tired. Those are two classic examples of somebody who may be having a bit of problems with their heart energy. Got
it. Okay. Finally, after so many years of you supporting the podcast, which I am so grateful for those of you who have supported the podcast on Patreon, thank you. It has truly been what has allowed me to keep going with this. And you've heard me say this over and over again. But I finally have an online community. So if you are currently a supporter of the podcast through Patreon, you should have received an email. If you are not yet a supporter of the podcast and want to join the Space Between community, now is your chance. Make sure you get on Patreon at you can just put in Dr. Amy Robbins and it will come up. And if you will become a supporter, you will get added to my community. Also, if you don't want to be a supporter, you can join my newsletter, which is a great way to get more information about the things I'm working on, upcoming events. The community just gives you a way more insider track, access to me, access to conversations, questions, quarterly Q&As for my highest subscribers. So come on over and join us in the Space Between community. So the heart is next. Tell us more about the heart chakra.
So Anahata, the center of our being. So the first three chakras are the chakras of matter And then the 3 chakras above in the 7 chakra system are the chakras of spirit. And then we have the heart, this balancing point, our center. It has to, if we were looking at a person who may have problems with this, how kind is this person? And not just kind to others, but being kind to themselves. So that's a question we can ask. Am I truly kind to myself when I do certain things? Like I might give and give and give and give and give to other people, but if I'm not giving to myself, and is my heart truly balanced? Is my heart center truly balanced? So questions like that. Our ability to feel joy, a kind of peaceful joy, not the shock. Like when we get too excited, that's actually can be considered an imbalance in the heart. Somebody that's always excited or overactive.
So too much. It really is about finding that perfect. And I'm going to talk a little bit about yin and yang, but that balance.
Yes.
Okay.
That balance is very important. Like when you mention yin and yang, like we have yin and yang in every aspect of our lives, but it's about having that balance of these energies. That balance of those energies is what is thought to bring good health in traditional Chinese medicine.
Okay. Let's keep going. Throat.
Okay, so we're to the throat chakra. And this chakra has to do with our ability to communicate within ourselves and with others. Can we communicate gracefully? It also has to do with purification. Because if we're constantly bogged down with energies that kind of keep us smothered, how can we communicate clearly our truths and our needs? So this is mostly about communicating, and it's also a pathway between the higher energy centers in the brain and the rest of the body. So we do want to keep this clear, the same way we want to keep our bodies relatively clean so that we can experience more our energy and our lives.
What would be physical symptoms as a result of the throat not being clear or that energy being blocked?
So the throat chakra, I connect to lung energy in traditional Chinese medicine. So if you constantly have respiratory problems, I may look at your throat chakra.
Okay.
If you find it very difficult to speak your truth, I look at the throat chakra. If there's swellings here, sometimes when you look at people, there's actual discoloration. You can see like the energy just looks heavy. So maybe they're just, or even the jaw. Like if you tighten the jaw, like I can't really get why I'm not able to say what I need to say. All right. See, that's a beautiful smile, Dr. Amy. So all those kind of things can show when the throat chakra is imbalanced, or if you have someone that constantly has to talk or is constantly quite aggressive. So you see how the chakras kind of relate, because it might be tied to the heart, but it can also be coming from the throat too. Or both of them can be influencing each other.
Okay.
And then we come to our third eye, or sixth chakra, ajna, which sits right in between the eyes, and it has to do with our ability to see, our ability to physically see and see intuitively as well. Our intuition, our gut feelings are tied a bit. So when we talk about gut feelings, we always kind of come back down to the stomach. But there's also, when we talk about that intuition, that ability to see, also how good is our proprioception, our ability to sense our body in space. So those things are all tied to the sixth chakra.
Well, and I also think, it's interesting to think about when we're talking about gut brain, the deep connection that we now know on a physical level between those two, not just maybe energetically, which it sounds like is also there, but that we do have so many serotonin receptors in our gut right? That influence our mental health and even the connection, like thinking about, just as we're kind of, I always like to think about like psychology, spirituality, Eastern, Western, where they meet and how they kind of, I think about like a transparency, like how they lay on top of each other almost perfectly in that way.
Yes. Yes. Like you were talking about the receptors in the gut. The gut has the second most amount of those sensory receptors. The only other part is the brain. So there is that connection. And again, it shows how the energy is very fluid through our bodies. But when we think about ajna, we think about our center of command, our ability to see what's happening in life clearly, and also see where we're going, what it is that we want to achieve. And then we come to our seventh chakra, which is some people describe it right in the center of the brain. Some people describe it as sitting atop the head. But this is our center of grace. It's our ability to recognize our divinity and appreciate our spirituality, understand our purpose. And that energy is considered a thousand petaled lotus, and it kind of just connects us to the divine, and it just opens, and it's almost like a wonderful, I visualize it like a shower. It's just a beautiful beautiful energy just flowing right through us.
Well, and that's the last spot, right? When we're born, that comes together, which I think is so fascinating, that soft spot, right? That's like the soul is still making its way into the body.
I like how you tie it to our body's physiology.
Yeah, because I think it's helpful. It's helpful for me. I don't know that it's helpful for others, but it's always helpful for me to think about, okay, how does this make sense in like everyday life for the things that we say or the things that we do or how we talk about things? Like you said, like I have a gut feeling that this isn't the right thing, right? We use these words, we say these things, but then we often dismiss this whole energetic part or this spiritual part of ourselves, even though we're using words and saying these things all the time in everyday life.
I agree. That is part of the reason I wrote Energetic Anatomy Made Easy, because for myself as a young yoga teacher years ago, I just looked at these images of chakras and I was like, what does this have to do with me? How can I make sense of this? And I wanted to share that.
So I've heard that there are also kind of the reverse chakras that go up into like our higher soul. Is that?
Yes. There are systems that discuss more chakras. Like I've heard of one system have 45. I know of many systems that have talk about 8. I think 8 is quite common. So
like 8 total or 8 more that go like that's the flip. I've heard it be like the flip of
both.
What we have. Okay.
Both. Both. But I'm more familiar with the 7 chakra system. So I stay with what I am familiar with. Yeah.
What you know. Okay. So what are things that we can do if you can't get to acupuncture that we can do in our everyday life? One, how do we know if one of our chakras is out of balance? And what can we do simply to bring some of those back into balance?
So we need to know which energies are associated with each chakra. Once we know the energies, then we're better able to access if it is balanced or imbalanced in ourselves.
Okay, so how can we personally know that or no?
Yes, we can, because when we develop our self-awareness, we definitely can. Most of us know when we are afraid. Like COVID was a period of great uncertainty, and there's still quite a lot of uncertainty. We're not feeling very balanced. Then we start to look at, so which chakra has to do with balance and feeling grounded? That's our root chakra. What activities can I do to strengthen, like to balance the energy of my root chakra? Sometimes being with your family, and that's not necessarily blood related, but
Right.
being with your family can provide a sense of safety.
Mm-hmm.
Taking deep breaths into the lower dantian, so that's an energy center located in the lower abdomen.
Mm-hmm.
Taking deep breaths into that area can help to ground us. So you can place your hands on your abdomen. You don't need a lot of time, 3 minutes. And you just focus on your breathing. And as you inhale, you breathe into your belly. You feel it expand. And as you exhale, you feel it relax. About 3 minutes. And what does that do? Because each of us, we're so complex and beautiful and different. And there are many different pathways up the mountain to wellness. So we
I
have
like
to.
that quote. Many different pathways up the mountain to wellness.
That's just my version. A friend of mine was saying there are many pathways up the mountain to enlightenment. So I just changed it a little bit. It's not mine.
Well, it's a good one.
Thank you.
So, okay, so go on. So there's the breath, which calms the whole system, right? It
Yes.
calms the whole nervous system, everything.
Yes. And it's a really good one for grounding. We can also just lay on the floor. Again, connecting to your breathing, but feeling the solidity of the earth beneath you, connecting to Mother Earth. Take a walk through a garden, through a park.
Barefoot?
Barefoot if it's clean. Grounding, so that's a specific practice where you stand barefoot, or you can,
Right.
Some people like the grounding mats. Some people say they're no good. So I guess you have to experiment.
But the best thing to do is to be in the earth,
Yes.
grounded. Yeah.
Yes. I've heard
And
a
then-
really amazing story. There was this girl that was really sick, and they couldn't help her, and they just sent her home to her family, and they buried her in the soil, I think for 2 or 3 days. And when she came out of the soil, she was well.
No way.
It's just a story. I don't know how true it is, but I heard it, thought it was very interesting.
I mean, I don't mind being buried in the sand. Does that have the same effect, or probably
I think
not?
it would be similar.
It would?
Should be similar. Yeah, I think it should
There's
be similar.
something about being buried in sand and that, like, I mean, talk about feeling grounded, that like heaviness, and that like you don't want to move, because like if you move, you almost feel one grain kind of move down your body. It's
So that sounds like a really beautiful way to ground. I think I'm gonna have to include that in the second edition of my book. Thank you.
as long as you reference me, right? Reference
course.
me. Yeah.
Of course.
I think, well, but if we think about it, right? Like I always also like to think about what kids do naturally. Like what are they naturally drawn to that as adults we get very far drawn to being buried in the sand, right? Like bury me. And they love it. So there must be something to it beyond just like
Kids.
the coolness of being buried in the sand.
Kids are closer to the source. They're closer to the source of energy, and sometimes we can learn from them.
All the time we can learn from them. So let's talk a little bit about vibrational yin that you founded, this style of yin yoga that incorporates acupuncture points using sound. How does that work? I've
Yes,
gotten really
so-
into sound too. I've had several people come on talking about different sound therapies and stuff.
That's awesome. I think sound healing is one of the greatest future medicinal modalities that we are kind of know. It's really exciting medicine right now. We're just at the cusp. Very beautiful. So in vibrational yin, in yin yoga, you come into a posture and you hold it. You find stillness in that posture for anywhere from 90 seconds to 10 minutes, even more. You are invited to rest deeply. You are invited to find stillness. In vibrational yin, before we move into that stillness, we stimulate an acupuncture point. And each acupuncture point affects, like we were talking about earlier, the energy flow in the body, and also can affect the health of the meridian. Now, you're not, unless this acupuncturist is a master, and there are a few of them, I've actually seen one of them working with they'll needle one acupuncture point, and you are
Wow.
fixed. No, I don't have those skills. I think I'm just a regular acupuncturist. I'm going to use about 10 acupuncture points
Got
to
it.
get the same effect. So in Vibrational Yin, I want to invite people into a new form of healthcare where you are stimulating specific acupuncture points while doing these yin yoga postures. And you have these acupuncture points that are combined in such a way as to create health depending on whatever it is condition we're looking at. So someone with anxiety, they're generalized acupuncture points. So when you come to an acupuncturist is going to be specific. They're going to look at your tongue, pulse, talk to you, get the correct diagnosis, and find out exactly what's going on. Because quite often with anxiety, people just think is an excess in energy, but quite often there is also an underlying deficiency. So someone who has been stressed out or dealing with quite a few stressors for maybe 2 or 3 years is depleted. So I need to deal with the underlying deficiency so that I can then in turn correct the anxious feelings that they're having. So it may not just be dealing with the anxious feelings, it might be actually dealing with the underlying deficiency as well. So each person is different. We need to find out exactly what's going on. But with these generalized prescriptions, you can start to create change in the body.
So when that's the case and you balance, let's use anxiety because that's a perfect example for the work that I do. You balance the energy of the anxiety. You get to kind of understand what caused it or maybe what got it out of balance. How does the emotional piece then play into it? Is balancing the chakra systems enough? And people can just go on their merry way and maybe they don't feel anxious anymore. They don't feel sad or depressed, or they found their voice suddenly because their throat chakra is now cleared and aligned. Or is it in combination with, I feel like I'm leading the question here, but is it in combination with other work?
It depends. Depends on the person, depends on it really depends. Every situation is unique. But I think a complementary approach is always good. So other work is always good. Depends too on if the person is the person still, what is the reason behind the anxiety? Is it because they've been in a high stress situation for a very long time? Like in my practice, I've had clients come in and I help them manage a condition because they cannot get rid of the stressors, or for some reason they can't get out of the situation that is causing the high stress. But what I can do is help them manage it until they can. So I remember like I had one client and dealing with a very high stress situation. I didn't realize how stressful it was until she came in and she said it was over. And it was a completely different, her energy was completely different. So sometimes we can only help, in my experience, help people manage some of these stressors that they're going through. So it really depends on the person and the situation. But if we can help to keep them healthy, then we can help them manage whatever they're going through. And sometimes we do have cases where they just really just need maybe. So in traditional Chinese medicine, often when we look at anxiety, we look at the liver organ, which is, we consider the liver the general of the body, general over the flow of qi. When energy does not flow or qi does not flow properly through our body, it can almost be like a wire. So imagine the channel for the energy as like a wire, and the energy is just flowing crazily through that wire, and it becomes very taut and unhealthy. So sometimes we can just help them to shift, to change how that energy flows. We might not be able to completely solve the problem. Sometimes we can.
Got it. Fascinating work. And so, I mean, I love the compliments of certainly acupuncture in my work, you know, referring to doing some more energy medicine. I definitely do some tapping in my work as well, which I'll be
Awesome.
talking about on this podcast in a couple weeks. So, Laurel, if you
Awesome.
have tell people where they can find you, where they can find your new book, which is it's like a great manual for understanding energy medicine. So where can they find you and find everything you're talking about here and teaching and treating?
So you can find me at Dr. Acumassage. That's dr.acumassage.com. On dracumassage.com, I have links to my book, Energetic Anatomy Made Easy, Create Better Health Through an Understanding of Your Chakras and Meridians. I also have yoga videos there for people who are interested in learning more about vibrational yin, how you can actually start incorporating the knowledge of traditional Chinese medicine into your yoga practice.
Yeah.
So you'll kind of find
sounds like
there.
I checked it out before you came on, but I'm going to dig a little bit deeper. So thank you so much for your time today and for sharing all of these really basic ways for us to get to know our own selves and chakras better. So thank you.
Thank you very much for having me.
Like what you heard today and want to hear more? Wondering what comes next and what it all means? Head over to Apple Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, or anywhere you get your podcasts and hit subscribe. Also, if you could take a minute to rate and review my podcast, I would really appreciate it. Stay tuned as we continue to explore life, death, and the space between.